Hello everybody and welcome to the third tip tutorial for TC2 Node Painter. In this video I'm going to show some basic tips and tricks for working with large-scale terrains and what to avoid. So to start off, I'm talking about what not to do when you have, for example, external WAR files that you imported from World Machine or World Creator standalone. Some people I've seen, which is actually quite natural, I've seen importing those WAR files directly in the node. So like this, import and edit it directly. While this works, it's not recommended, because that means if you have a large terrain of maybe 16 by 16 kilometers, I don't know, that means the whole WAR file or the whole terrain data has to be imported in a Node Painter, and that means a very large resolution, which will ultimately slow down the painter. This is nothing I can avoid, that's the way it is, and we want to avoid that. So instead of directly importing, I'm going to use the WAR image node, or you can create the terrain whatever way you want, just not by importing anything into Node Painter for the whole terrain. We're going to find a way today how to work with the setup. So what we want to avoid is very large node painters, and we want to avoid or we have to fix one problem with overlaying the node painter. So I'm going to show what I mean in a second. Basically, if you now want to create a node painter, make it small. Oops. What you can do now is, of course, paint, and it will work. But what you can not do is subtract from the terrain. That's because what you have here is black, and it won't go blacker than black. So you can't subtract from the existing height. These two problems we want to solve today. Where the first problem is actually quite intuitive to solve, the one with one large terrain painter. Instead, we're going to create many smaller painters in the areas that we want to edit. So basically, points of interest like towns can get an own node painter, which will serve only that purpose, and it gives quite a lot of advantages. First, to host all node painters, going to create a node group or layer group by right-clicking the plus button, and now can create a node painter and name it maybe local, and we can make it very small because we only need it to span maybe 100 meters at most. So where we have it, say I want to create a town here. To position it around, we'll use the second method I'm going to show today, and that is this. Now I know where it is, and I position it where I want it. Okay, so I already started what I wanted to show next, and that is a way to prevent or enable subtraction from the terrain. And that is basically, we combine the canvas, we edit the canvas to be on the height 0.5, and at the same time, to correct that offset, we will offset the height of the node to negative 500 because that's the half of the size Y. So you see that has been fixed. We have now a small node painter here that is offsetted in such a way that we have the option to paint by adding and by subtracting. Also, let's just use some normal stuff here, and let's say 1. Now with that setup, we can now locally add and subtract. Oops. Obviously, if you undo the fill, we see that's where our canvas is. Now one problem that poses now is, if we have a large world, we'll have many painters, like maybe dozens of painters, and this creates a problem when loading the scene, because each time Node Painter loads, it will have to load the cage file obviously and put it through the basic process, which requires around 3 render textures. So even though these are disposed when they are not needed, each Node Painter has to load around 3 render textures in memory, and that is at full bit depths. That means in 32 bits. And this could create a problem with memory. I didn't test it yet, but there's also a workaround for that. I hope to integrate that workaround in the Node Painter directly. Basically, when we have hundreds of painters, or dozens, let's just not exaggerate, we probably won't be editing everything at once. So what about baking the Node Painter? In theory, we can just export the canvas, assign it manually to the image file here, and disable the painter. That way we'll have another exported file, but we don't have to create that file each time the canvas loads. For now we'll have to do this manually. I intend to create a button for it, maybe down here, bake, and when you want to start painting again you can unbake, basically. The process behind this is simple. We can export either with raw or texture and assign it to the node. For now, because this is a local canvas, we can probably get away with 8 bits. 8 bits is usually not that good for terrains, but because it's a local painter we can scale it down. What this means is we can't go as high. You see, we are capped, I think around here, yes. So we are capped to a maximum height, but that should be more than enough to work with it. And we can go the same height below the terrain. And what this allows us to do is using a way lower bit depth, and that bit depth basically is enough for such a small space. Okay, I hope you can follow me there, but I think you can trust me if I say with such a local painter we can export to texture without experiencing any precision issues. So now you see I already did that. We can just export it here as a PNG. Now disable the Node Painter and go to the export where I put it. Don't mind that. And we're going to import it here. See, I disabled the painter and it works just the same. So now this painter won't create any issues when you load the scene, and if you want to start painting again, you'll just have to enable the painter again and you can just start painting. And it should assign the image. Oops, I did not enable it. So now it works. So basically whenever you don't need a canvas for a long time, you can export it. And as I said, I probably make a bake button for that. So I hope I didn't forget anything. That's the basic idea I had for working with the large scale terrains. These are some very basic optimizations, and well, these should allow you to work with large scale terrains and not suffering from some severe painting issues. And well, I hope that works. Also, I recommend to check out the other 2 tip tutorials I made. That means the plateau painting, because that allows you, even though you don't have the terrain in here, I can show that. You can't set the terrain height anymore to a certain height. You see, I can plateau paint, but the underlying terrain will not be set to that height, but the canvas. And to go around that, or work around that, I made a tutorial for creating a special layer for actually setting the terrain height. So recommend to check that out. And also the splat painting, which means you can have a whole area with procedural splats, and at the same time overlay your manually created or painted splats and mix them with the procedural ones. These both are very good methods for working with procedural terrains, and I hope you can check that out, and they serve you well. If you have other ideas for working with large-scale terrains, or well, any requests for another video, I hope to see them in the forums, and well, see you in the next video.